Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how unmotivated we are to train, or even if you're feeling sore, if your lifts are improving over time, by definition, you are recovered. Hey guys, welcome to the RMH Project. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing all things recovery. If you haven't been to the channel before, welcome. My name is Ryan. I'm an ex-NRL player, online coach, and natural bodybuilder. And this channel is all about how to get jacked. And this is actually episode 6 of the How to Get Jacked series. If you haven't watched previous episodes, definitely do encourage you guys to go back and watch. And this is actually the last and final episode of this series. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. As I said, we're going to be talking about recovery. Now, recovery is such a broad term. And I definitely think there is a lot of misconception when people talk about recovery, especially as it applies to the fitness industry, especially as an online coach. This is one thing that I find myself correcting a lot of my clients around, and just trying to change their mindset around recovery. Now, a lot of people sort of, when you think about recovery, they think about like not being sore and not potentially having sort of niggling injuries. Obviously, we don't want too much soreness. We don't want too much niggling injuries, but it's kind of a part of building muscle. Okay, building muscle is an inflammatory process. There will be some soreness. There will be days where you feel more lethargic. You will have some weakness in your muscles. That's all a part of it. But it's allowing the recovery time to be able to make sure that the next session that you have is still quite stimulative. Okay, so it's about balancing that. It's not about never having it, but it's about balancing it. Okay, now, how do we know if we are recovering well? Okay, well, the biggest metric that you can look at, and the biggest thing that you can follow to identify if you're recovering well, is, are your lifts improving over time? This is a massive one. If your lifts are improving over time, you are recovered. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how unmotivated we are to train, or even if you're feeling sore, if your lifts are improving over time, by definition, you are recovered. Okay. Otherwise, if you aren't performing over time and you aren't improving and you're seeing a drop in performance, that would mean that you're under recovered. So that is one of the best ones. So if you're tracking your lifts and say week 1, let's keep the numbers nice and simple. So week 1, you tracked your lift, you did 100 kilos on your squat, and you did 10 reps, and then you did 8 reps on the second set, and then for the third set, you did 7. Okay, and then the next week, you did 10, 9, and 8. Okay, obviously you were recovered that week, you came back, you improved on your performance. But then what if we went to week 3 and you did 100 kilos and you went 8, 7, and 5. Okay, now that would be obviously a decrease in performance. So you would have to probably say that you are under recovered from week 2 heading into week 3. Okay, now there is random drops in performance. Okay, and if it's sort of a once-off, maybe you didn't sleep very well that night, maybe you're a little bit stressed the day before at work, maybe you didn't eat as much as what you usually do, or you're a little bit dehydrated. These things can definitely happen. Okay, if it's a one-off session and then the next session you're back to normal, that's fine. It's just a one-off session. These things happen from time to time. They happen to myself all the time. It's not something to worry about. But if you are having a great week 1, you're setting your baselines, and then week 2, you're getting improvement, and then week 3, come in for squats on Monday, your performance is down. Come in for upper body on Tuesday, your bench press is down. If you are seeing a bit of a trend where you are trending down, then you are under recovered. Okay, so something needs to happen. I'll even talk about how to improve your recovery in this next little bit. But just for now, identifying recovery. If you are seeing back-to-back performances where your performance is dropping, probably this is a good indication that you are under recovered. Now, another one is adequate sleep, or your sleep that you're getting and what you feel is adequate sleep. Are you feeling refreshed after it? Okay, so a really good one that I like to try with clients is, what we'll do is we'll cut their caffeine consumption in half. Okay, if they feel like they can get through the day completely fine, then they're probably well slept. If you feel like you need a nap halfway through the day, or you feel quite lethargic, or your brain fog, and you're not sort of as sharp as what you usually are when you have caffeine, potentially you're not getting an adequate amount of sleep at night. Now, there's two things when it comes to sleep. Obviously, the quantity of sleep you get, so whether you sleep for 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, whatever the case may be, that is the quantity. But then you also have the quality. Are you getting into the deep sleeps? Are you getting into the REM sleeps? Are you getting into the different phases of sleep to make sure that your quality of sleep, even though that you're sleeping for 7 hours, but all 7 hours quality, or is your quality not that great? Okay, so there's two sort of ways that you can look at sleep. And if you want to dive a little bit more into sleep, I actually have an episode on sleep where we talk about how sleep affects fat loss. Definitely go and watch that episode if you want to dive a little bit deeper in. I actually go into a little bit of a deeper dive in that. I'm not going to cover sleep too much, otherwise it'll take a bit too long today. But if you want to know a little bit more about that, definitely go and check out that video. And how is your motivation to train, especially compared to usual? Okay, so some people are more motivated to train, some people are less motivated to train. That's completely fine. Okay, everyone's on a spectrum of how motivated they are to how unmotivated they are. Okay, but relative to how motivated you are, how do you feel from there? So for me, I really enjoy my back sessions. I love back sessions. How I know if I'm pushing close to accumulating a lot of fatigue and when I'm slightly under recovered is when I don't look forward to my back sessions. I don't want to be in there for back sessions. I usually love my back sessions. So that is another way that you can sort of tell maybe psychologically you're starting to maybe need a little bit of a break there. Okay, so obviously we have the physical side and also we have the psychological side, and they are both in recovery. Okay, we need to balance the both of them. It's not just like you know what I mean? I feel great physical, but I just don't want to be there. That's something that you need to address, okay? Looking at sleep, looking at how you're managing your psychological stress, okay? You need to look at that and try and improve that. But I will say the most important thing is our lift's improving over time. So even if you get to the gym, you don't want to be there and you're like, this is going to be a shit day, because I've had heaps of these days. Even if you think it's going to be a shit day, okay? But then you go in and you do a PB, you're recovered. You're fine. You're not overtrained. You're not under recovered. If you can hit or improve on even if you hit what you did last week, you're still recovered. Okay. So I just want to reiterate that the main metric of how you're going to judge whether you are under recovered is how your performance is improving and how you're maintaining performance over time. Now, how to improve the recovery. Okay, so we've identified that, hey, we're probably under recovered in these areas, or we're having these poor drop-offs in sessions. Okay, so how do we improve that recovery? All right, now sleep. Sleep is written in capital letters there because it is the best and most important recovery modality you can choose to improve. If you're nailing your sleep, you're pretty much 90% of the way there when it comes to recovery. As I said, I dive a little bit deeper into how does sleep affect fat loss, and actually go through studies of where people who sleep more actually physically lose more fat and build more muscle. Okay, now this is obviously we have our psychological side where, when we have poor sleep, we don't feel like doing things and then hunger cravings and stuff like that. But literally, people, even if they're in the same calorie deficit, the same everything, they slept in a metabolic ward, they stayed in a metabolic ward, they were monitored 24/7, everything was exactly the same, but their sleep was poorer, they actually lost less fat and gained more fat and lost more muscle. So definitely encourage you to go back and watch, and just want to emphasize how important sleep is. Okay, it is like the ultimate recovery drug. If you could take a drug, sleep would be right up there. Okay, and then nutrition. Okay, nutrition is super important. Obviously, we need to make sure that we are managing our calories. So if you're in a fat loss phase, obviously you need to be hitting your calories, hitting your macros that you're after. If you're in a build phase, you're doing the same thing. Okay, making sure we're getting those things, making sure we're getting our protein, our carbs, our fats, and we're making sure it's coming from good whole food sources. Okay, so not to say that you can't have a little bit of processed from time to time, that's completely fine, but we want to make sure that we're getting a good micronutrient balance as well. So making sure that we're having things like fruits, vegetables, we're getting our protein in, whether it be from lean protein, also getting some fatty fish and stuff in there as well to make sure we're getting some quality fats. So the things like salmon, things like nuts, things like avocados, olive oils, all of these good things. As I said, you can enjoy your treats from time to time, definitely. But if we want to make sure that we're covering and fueling our body as best we can, we should be going for sort of like 80 to 90% whole food, just to make sure that we're ticking those micronutrient boxes, not only macronutrient, but also our micronutrient boxes as well. Okay. And then managing psychological stress. Now, as I spoke about before, sometimes you won't be as motivated. Okay. We need to find out why that potentially is. Okay. So our performance is going up, and that's fantastic, but we're not feeling as motivated. Now, there can be a couple of reasons, and I don't want to spoil it, but one down the bottom there could be something that we need to look into as well. But a big one is managing psychological stress. Now, there's two ways you can manage your psychological stress. You have the stress that you can choose or not to choose. Okay, so you can choose whether to put yourself in a stressful situation, or perhaps you don't have to put yourself in that stressful situation. Okay, so that one's obviously an easy one. So you want to be trying to make sure that you are removing those situations that might be stressful, especially when you're trying to focus on a certain thing, whether it be work, whether it be trying to improve your physical health and stuff like that. Maybe you want to dial back on that from time to time. Okay, so maybe if you had a friend's friend that had a birthday and they're going out for drinks and stuff like that, social situations are great for recovery, but having a lot to drink and then not having recovering in your sleep and stuff like that, obviously is going to put a stress on it. So maybe when it comes to those things, we're saying no more than what we're saying yes through different periods in our life. Okay. And then managing the stress that is unavoidable. Okay, so things with work, things with family, your partner, these things are stresses that happen, but it's how we manage it. Okay, now I'm not going to give you the Tony Robbins and say that you need to be positive, and although that is a great way to look at life, you know what I mean, you want to see the positives in things, but just to give you a bit more of a practical takeaway, I would just look at trying to make time for yourself where you're de-stressing. Okay, obviously, yes, having a positive mindset and stuff like that is always important, but I'm not that guy. I'm not Tony Robbins. So I'm going to give you some practical takeaways of what you can do and what you can control, which is trying to get some you time. Okay, so anything that you enjoy, anything that relaxes you, and anything that you can just not have to be on for, you can just switch off a little bit. For me, I can just watch Netflix. I like watching Suits. So I can just put that on, I enjoy it, it relaxes me, and I don't have to be on for it. Okay, so I also enjoy watching fitness content, but I have to be on for it. If I'm watching fitness content, I want to make sure that I'm absorbing something from it, so my brain is still on. I want to absorb things from it. So for me, that's not a very good relaxing time or relaxing modality for trying to de-stress. Okay, so something like putting, yes, as I said, Suits or some type of trash TV, I can get a little snack on. If I do that for one afternoon a week, I'm pretty much good. You know what I mean? Depending on obviously how stress is going at that point in time, but mostly that just de-stresses me like crazy. For some people, it's different. For some people, they could enjoy like journaling or meditation. For me, journaling is harder than doing this stuff. Like I can't switch off when I do it. So find something, again, that you enjoy, that relaxes you, and you can be off for. You don't want to be on, okay? You want to switch the brain off, okay? Give yourself time to just relax and recuperate. Now, next up is rest periods. Okay, so the most important thing when it comes to training is to try and string together weeks of good training. Okay, so as I said when I gave the sort of the squat analogy before, where sort of week 1 you were good, week 2 you progressed, and then week 3 you fell off. Okay, we don't want to see that happening. We want to see gradual progression over time. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to hit a PB every week or even improve on last week. Sometimes you might just match what you did last week. Okay, but you want to be seeing that happen over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and we want to string as many of those good training weeks together as we can. But inevitably, we will start to have a drop-off in performance because as we train, we accumulate fatigue. It's just a part of the process. We don't want to avoid fatigue because fatigue is a part of the process, completely fine. But we want to try and get as far along as we can to make sure that we string as many of those great weeks together so we're getting so much stimulation for muscle growth, and then we have to take a period of where we take either a deload maybe just half a week completely off training, or maybe you take a full week completely off training. Okay, so what I generally follow is I'll do sort of like 7 to 8 weeks, and then I'll start to see performance drop off, and then I'll just take 3 days off. So I might go in the first Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and performance is crap, crap, crap. And then I'll go, right, I'm just going to take the rest of the week off the gym. I'll come back on Monday when I'm refreshed and do it again. And generally that's enough time for me to refresh and go again for another 8 weeks. Okay. Some people might need a little bit longer. Maybe they need to do a deload week where you might do actually take the first 3 days off, and then you might come in for 3 days and do a little bit of like an active circuit style training where you're sort of mimicking, and I'll speak about this a little bit in movement mobility, but where you're sort of mimicking your sessions. Or some people might just need the whole week off just to sort of decompress, get out of the gym a little bit, you know what I mean? Especially if you're super unmotivated to train, maybe you just need to like a switch of scenery, get away from the gym, miss it a little bit, and then get back into it. Okay, so it's important that those rest periods are fueling you to be able to string together more training weeks. And commonly, so much what I see when I program sort of like a half week where they're doing a deload or maybe just taking time off the gym, people, I'll check in with them, and then they'll be like, oh, you'd be so proud of me. I went into the gym and did an hour of cardio. I know I was meant to be off that day, but I went and did an hour of cardio. I'm like, that's great. I love your enthusiasm, but it's kind of not what we need at this point in time. We want to make sure that we're recovering as best we can. So if you take 3 days off, don't start to feel guilty and then start to go for runs or start to do random bits of light exercise, or you fill up that time. You say you take the weekend off and then you think, oh, I'm going to go out with friends and go on a bender and not sleep and drink heaps. That is not recovery. We want that 3 days to be as recoverable as possible. So you want to chill out, you want to relax. Obviously, if you're in a fat loss phase, you still want to sort of be getting your steps in and the important things to make sure that we're not derailing and you're not going on a binge or anything like that with eating. You don't want to derail your fat loss phase, but you want to make sure that you're getting in some nutritious food. You want to make sure you're relaxing. You want to make sure that maybe every day you're incorporating some trash TV like I do. Okay, and then because when you get to the end of that, you should be like, oh, I can't wait to do something. I'm sick of sitting around. I'm sick of not going to the gym. You want to, that Monday morning, you're the first one at the gym. That's how you want to feel after your rest periods. Okay, so you want to make sure that you take enough rest so that you should get to the end of it and you're like, oh, I'm sick of sitting around. I cannot wait to get back in the gym. And then that should fuel you for another 8 weeks, which is what we want to do. We want to string together these good weeks of training, not 2 weeks are good, 2 weeks are bad, 2 weeks good, 2 weeks are bad. You don't want that. You don't want this zigzag where you don't progress, you just go up and down. We want a gradual progression, and then you start to drop off a little bit, and then we take a rest day, and then you gradual progression, then we take a rest period and keep going along that. So it's like yes, there's like little curves in it, but it's more of a linear line where we're slowly progressing, okay? Now, as I spoke about before, some movement and mobility we can incorporate into this rest period, especially if it's a week rest period. So what you might do is take 3 days off, and then for the last 3 days, you'll go in and sort of mimic the program that you usually do, but you'll do half the weight, half the reps, half the sets. So literally it might take you 20 minutes. Couple of factors for this. They've actually shown in research that if you move your body, okay, and take your body through full range of motion, say if you do like a squat pattern, taking your body through a full range of motion squat pattern, it'll actually loosen you up better and actually improve the recovery and get the blood flowing a little bit, so you actually get recovered in more areas and that you're actually better for when you come and get back. And then plus you also get a factor of you don't de-skill, okay? So a squat pattern, that is a skill, okay? So by you doing that every week, or multiple times a week, you improve that skill. So if you take a week off, it's not that you completely de-learn it, but you might, for the first week you go back and your squat pattern might feel off and you might not feel right for the next week. So by doing that, you will sort of retrain or just make sure we maintain that skill so that when we go back to full hard out training, you're ready to go, okay? And I chucked in massage and physical therapy there. I enjoy it. And now it's not really shown in the research to do a hell of a lot, but I enjoy it. It relaxes me. Now this can be swapped out for saunas, obviously ice baths, but just making sure it's not around your training windows, so like 24 hours within that, because it can blunt actually muscle growth. But you should be in your rest week, so that should be completely fine. Meditation, whatever, yoga, whatever it is, if you enjoy it, if it relaxes you, if you can switch off, do it. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that in as well. And then assessing staleness. So I kind of spoke about this. If you are really feeling unmotivated to train, generally sometimes there can be certain exercise that you feel unmotivated to train for. So this is not like when you go in, you're like, you know that you have to hit a heavy squat. And you're like, oh, like I don't really want to do this because it's going to be sore. It's more along the lines of when I do it, I don't really feel it in my target muscles. So say if you're doing a squat, you don't really feel it in your quads. You start to feel it in your knees. You don't really feel like it's super stimulative. You're not really in love with it anymore. You know what I mean? It's not because that you're trying to avoid hard training and you don't want to do the hard exercise. It's more just like you don't really feel like you're getting much out of it anymore. And that can be through, as I said, if you feel it more in the joints, like knees, ankles, lower back, whatever the case may be, and you feel less like of a quad pump, you feel less tension in your quads, then generally that exercise is starting to get stale and maybe it's time to switch that out. Okay, so you might go from a high bar back squat, you might go to maybe a Smith machine squat or a leg press or a hack squat or whatever the case may be. It doesn't really matter, but you might want to swap that out for another squat pattern. Okay, so hopefully this helps, guys. I know recovery, as I spoke about at the start, especially as an online coach, I see it confuse people so often, and I hope that this is just giving you a little bit of direction when it comes to recovery and how to sort of assess whether you're being recovered well, and sort of what to do about it if you're not, because there's just a lot of misconceptions out there when it comes to recovery. And hopefully this has helped, guys. And as always, do those good things, like, subscribe, share. And if you have anything that you want me to talk about in the future, by all means, comment down below. I'm happy to discuss anything with you guys. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.